Your mindset is not broken, it is trained. Most people treat mindset like a mystery, something you either have or you don't. They assume confidence, discipline, focus, and optimism are personality traits, gifts you are born with, advantages reserved for the lucky. That belief feels comforting because it explains struggle without demanding change. But it is also the first trap because the truth is simpler, more uncomfortable, and far more freeing. Your mindset is not created by thoughts alone. It is created by habits, by what you repeat, by what you tolerate, by what you do every day when nobody is watching and nothing is forcing you to try. If you've ever felt stuck, unmotivated, scattered, or quietly disappointed with yourself, this is not a character flaw. It is not a lack of potential. It is a training result. You have been training your brain all along, whether you realized it or not. Every scroll that replaced focus, every delay that replaced commitment, every promise you made to yourself and didn't keep, every morning you began in reaction instead of intention. The brain does not care about your goals. It does not respond to what you want. It adapts to what you do. It strengthens what you repeat and weakens what you neglect. This is how neural pathways form. This is how behavior becomes automatic. This is how identity is built, not through affirmations or self-talk alone, but through action practiced consistently. This is why positive thinking often fails. You can think positive thoughts all day, but if your habits remain unchanged, your mindset will eventually snap back to its old shape. Temporary inspiration fades. Emotional highs pass. Habits don't. Habits quietly and steadily rewire the mind from the inside out without asking how you feel about it. Most people are waiting to feel motivated before they change. That approach feels logical, but it is backward. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. Confidence follows evidence. Discipline follows repetition. You do not become focused and then act. You act and focus is trained through use. This audiobook is not here to hype you up. It is not here to flood you with excitement that fades by tomorrow. It is here to retrain you calmly, practically, and permanently to help you rebuild your mindset at the level where change actually happens. Behavior. In the next 60 minutes, you will learn 10 positive habits that reshape how you think, feel, and respond to life. These habits are not complicated routines or extreme transformations. They are small, repeatable behaviors that send a powerful signal to your nervous system. I am in control. Each habit works because it targets a specific mental weakness, distraction, self-doubt, emotional reactivity, inconsistency, and replaces it with a stronger pattern. Clarity, stability, self-trust, calm, authority. This is not about becoming emotionless or rigid. It is about becoming steady. You do not need to adopt all 10 habits at once. In fact, trying to do so would defeat the purpose. You do not need perfection. What you need is consistency. One habit practiced daily is more powerful than 10 habits practiced occasionally. The brain changes through repetition, not ambition. As you listen, pay attention to resistance. Notice which habits create discomfort or excuses. Resistance is not a problem. It is information. It shows you where your current mindset is protecting comfort instead of growth. That is where real work begins, not in motivation but in awareness. This is not about becoming someone new overnight. It is about becoming someone reliable to yourself, someone who follows through, someone whose internal world is no longer chaotic and reactive but grounded and intentional. Someone who does not need to feel inspired to act. Your mindset will not change because you want it to. It will change because you live differently. 10 habits, one direction, a rewired mind, if you're tired. Starting over, this is your reset point. No pressure, no judgment, just training. Listen slowly. Let the ideas land. Then act one habit at a time, one day at a time. Because the person you want to become is not built by intensity. They are built by repetition. And repetition done with awareness always wins in the end. Stay with this process even when it feels boring. Boredom is often the doorway where lasting change quietly begins for disciplined, patient, focused people who choose growth. Let's begin. Habit 1. Start the day without your phone. The first thing most people reach for in the morning is not clarity. It is not presence. It is not intention. It is their phone. Before your feet touch the floor, before your breath settles, before your mind has even finished waking up, you allow the outside world to rush in. Notifications, messages, news, other people's priorities, other people's emotions, other people's urgency. And without realizing it, the tone of your entire day is set. This habit feels normal because almost everyone does it, but normal does not mean harmless. What you do in the first moments after waking is not a small detail. It is a training signal. It teaches your brain whether you are the one leading the day or whether the day will lead you. When you start the morning with your phone, you train your nervous system to live in reaction. You're telling your brain again and again, I respond before I decide. The human brain is especially sensitive during the first hour after waking. Hormones are shifting, neural pathways are flexible, attention is unclaimed. Whatever you introduce during this window leaves a deep imprint. This is why the first input matters more than anything that follows. When that input is constant stimulation, novelty, and comparison, your brain switches into dopamine-seeking mode. It looks for more updates, more validation, more distraction. Focus becomes harder not because you are undisciplined, but because you trained your brain to crave interruption. This is why many people feel scattered before noon. Not lazy, not broken, just overstimulated too early. Starting the day without your phone is not about productivity or moral discipline. It is about sovereignty. It is about reclaiming ownership over your attention before it is pulled apart. Most people believe they choose how they feel during the day. In reality, that choice was made within the first 5 minutes of waking. This habit works because it reverses that pattern. When you delay your phone in the morning, even briefly, you send a different message to your nervous system. I decide first. That message is stabilizing. It lowers background anxiety. It creates internal quiet, and from that quiet, clarity can emerge. At first, this will feel uncomfortable. You may feel restless, slightly anxious, bored. That reaction is important. It means your brain is no longer being immediately numbed by stimulation. It means awareness is returning. Discomfort here is not a problem, it is evidence that training has begun. The practice is simple, but it must be intentional. For the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking, do not touch your phone, not to check the time, not to reply just quickly, not to scroll. If needed, leave it in another room. Remove the option entirely. Instead, begin the day in this order. First, hydrate. Drink a full glass of water. This anchors your body in the present moment and supports wakefulness without stimulation. Second, breathe. Take 10 slow breaths. Inhale through the nose. Exhale longer than you inhale. No music, no podcast, just air. This calms the nervous system before the world enters. Third, remain still with your thoughts for a few minutes. Let your mind warm up naturally. Thoughts will arise, that's fine. Do not follow them, do not solve anything. Simply notice. This entire process takes less than 10 minutes, but its effect lasts far longer. Over time, your brain learns that silence is not dangerous, that boredom is not an emergency, that you do not need immediate stimulation to function. This is a profound shift. This habit also strengthens self-trust. Each morning you keep this small promise to yourself. You collect evidence of restraint, and restraint is the foundation of discipline. You begin to see yourself as someone who can choose delay over impulse. People with strong mindsets are not constantly stimulated. They are selective. They decide when information enters their mind. They do not begin their day by surrendering attention. Starting the day without your phone does not make life smaller. It makes your mind quieter. And a quiet mind is not empty, it is focused. You do not need to do this perfectly. You need to do it consistently. If 30 minutes feels impossible, start with 10. If 10 feels hard, start with 5. The duration matters less than the direction. What matters is that the first thing you do each morning is something you chose. This habit builds the identity of someone who leads themselves before responding to the world. Someone who begins from intention, not interruption. Win the first hour and you don't need to fight the rest of the day. Habit 2. Define one clear intention every morning. Most people don't lose control of their lives in dramatic moments. They lose it quietly through directionless days. You wake up, you move, you answer messages, you handle small tasks, you stay busy. Yet by evening there's a strange dissatisfaction, a sense that the day happened but you were never fully in it. This feeling is not laziness, it is drift. Drift happens when a day has no clear direction. When your attention is pulled by whatever is closest, loudest, or most urgent rather than by what actually matters. Without intention, the mind defaults to reaction, and repeated reaction slowly shapes a reactive mindset. Defining one clear intention every morning is how you stop drifting. An intention is not a task list. It is not pressure. It is not ambition. It is a decision about how you will show up regardless of circumstances. The human mind needs direction more than motivation. Motivation rises and falls. Direction stabilizes. When the brain knows what it is aiming for, attention organizes itself naturally. Energy stops leaking into unnecessary decisions. Most people overwhelm themselves with too many goals. They try to fix everything at once and end up fixing nothing. One clear intention cuts through that noise. An intention answers a simple but powerful question. Who am I choosing to be today? Not what will I achieve, but what standard will guide my actions. Without this anchor, the brain seeks comfort. It avoids effort. It reacts emotionally. With an intention, the brain has a reference point, a lens through which decisions are made. This habit rewires your mindset by replacing confusion with clarity. The practice takes less than 1 minute. Each morning, ideally after you've avoided your phone, pause and complete this sentence. Today. Choose to only one choice, only one direction. Examples are intentionally simple. Today I choose to stay focused. Today I choose to respond calmly. Today I choose to finish what I start. Today I choose to protect my energy. Notice how these intentions are not dependent on outcomes. They are behavioral. They describe actions you control, not results you hope for. Say the intention out loud or write it down. This matters. Language solidifies thought. When you name a direction, your brain begins scanning for moments to act in alignment with it. Throughout the day, you will forget the intention. That's normal. The training is not in remembering constantly. It is in remembering occasionally. Each time you recall the intention and adjust your behavior, you strengthen a neural pathway associated with agency. This is how self-respect is built, through small moments of alignment. Many people wait until they feel disciplined before acting with discipline, but discipline is not feeling, it is a decision repeated. The intention is that decision made in advance before stress and emotion interfere. This habit also reduces mental fatigue. When you know your intention, you make fewer unnecessary choices. You stop debating internally. You stop renegotiating with yourself all day. The path is already set. Clarity creates calm. At the end of the day, take a brief moment to reflect. Ask yourself one question. Did I honor my intention at least once today? Not perfectly, just once. If the answer is yes, the day counts. The brain learns through success, not perfection. If the answer is no, there is no punishment. Tomorrow becomes the next training session. Over time, this habit reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone carried by circumstances. You begin to see yourself as someone who chooses their response. That shift is subtle, but it is powerful. When you define one clear intention every morning, you stop waking up to react to life. You wake up to participate in it. Direction replaces drift. Choice replaces chaos. Habit 3: do one hard thing every day. Most people don't fail because they lack potential. They fail because they have trained themselves to avoid discomfort. Over time, life becomes organized around ease. Convenience replaces challenge. Comfort replaces growth. And without noticing, your tolerance for difficulty shrinks. Tasks that once felt manageable begin to feel heavy. Conversations that once felt normal start to feel threatening. The mindset slowly shifts from capable to cautious. This is not a character flaw. It is a conditioning result. The brain adapts to whatever level of difficulty you expose it to. If you consistently choose what is easy, your nervous system becomes fragile, stress feels louder, resistance feels unbearable, and your inner dialogue starts to sound like avoidance disguised as logic. Doing one hard thing every day reverses this process. A hard thing does not mean extreme suffering or dramatic effort. It means something you would naturally delay, rationalize away, or negotiate with yourself about something that creates resistance before you begin. That resistance is the signal. Discomfort is not danger, it is feedback. It tells you that you are stepping outside a familiar pattern, and familiar patterns, even when limiting, feel safe to the nervous system. When you intentionally choose discomfort, you send a powerful message to your brain: I can handle this. That message matters more than the task itself. Confidence is not built by success alone, it is built by repeated proof of endurance. Most people wait until they feel ready before doing something hard, but readiness is not a prerequisite, it is an outcome. The brain learns capability after action, not before it. This habit rewires your mindset by changing your relationship with resistance. Instead of interpreting resistance as a stop sign, you begin to see it as a doorway. Instead of avoiding it, you move toward it deliberately. And each time you do, the nervous system recalibrates. The practice is simple and flexible. Every day, choose one action that feels uncomfortable and complete it on purpose. It can be physical, exercising when you don't feel like it, taking a cold shower, choosing effort over convenience. It can be mental, focusing deeply without distraction, tackling a task you've been avoiding, sitting with silence instead of stimulation. It can be emotional, having a difficult but necessary conversation, setting a boundary, allowing yourself to feel something without escaping it. The category doesn't matter, the intention does. Choose the hard thing in advance. Do not wait until the moment arrives. Deciding ahead of time removes negotiation. Negotiation weakens habits, commitment strengthens them. When the moment comes, act without debate. The longer you argue with yourself, the stronger the avoidance pathway becomes. Action short-circuits that loop. Head first, your mind will protest. It will offer excuses that sound reasonable. This is normal. The brain is designed to conserve energy and avoid uncertainty. Your job is not to silence the voice, but to act anyway. This habit works because it increases stress tolerance. Each completed hard thing teaches your nervous system that discomfort is temporary and survivable. Over time, the intensity of resistance decreases. What once felt difficult becomes normal, and when difficulty feels normal, fear loses leverage. This habit also reduces overthinking. When you train yourself to act despite resistance, you spend less time analyzing and more time moving forward. Action simplifies the mind, avoidance complicates it. Many people confuse self-care with self-protection. True self-care includes challenge. It includes growth that feels uncomfortable before it feels rewarding. Avoiding all difficulty does not create peace, it creates fragility. At the end of the day, acknowledge the hard thing you did, not with celebration, with recognition. This closes the loop. Discomfort, action, completion, confidence. Over time, your identity begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids what is hard. You begin to see yourself as someone who meets it. That identity change is subtle, but it is powerful. It alters how you approach work, relationships, and uncertainty. You trust yourself more, not because life becomes easier, but because you have trained yourself to handle difficulty. When real challenges appear, your nervous system recognizes the feeling. You have been here before. You have practiced this state. You do not panic, you move. Do one hard thing every day. Not to prove anything, not to punish yourself, but to remind yourself repeatedly of what you are capable of. Discomfort chosen willingly builds strength that comfort never will. Habit 4. Control what you consume. Your mind is not a blank space. It is an environment, and like any environment, whatever you repeatedly place inside it will grow. Most people try to change their mindset by controlling their actions while ignoring what silently shapes those actions every day. They focus on discipline, productivity, and goals, but overlook the constant stream of inputs feeding their nervous system. News, social media, conversations, music, videos, opinions, outrage, comparison. Consumption is happening whether you notice it or not, and the brain does not filter for quality by default. It adapts to repetition. Whatever you consume consistently becomes familiar, and whatever becomes familiar begins to feel normal. This is why so many people feel anxious, distracted, and emotionally reactive without understanding why. They are living inside a mental environment they never consciously chose. Controlling what you consume is not about isolation or superiority. It is about responsibility. Every input carries a tone. Some inputs sharpen clarity, others agitate the nervous system. Some stabilize your emotional state, others fragment your attention. Over time, these tones shape your baseline mindset. Your mindset is not created in moments of effort. It is shaped quietly through daily exposure. If your mornings begin with urgency, outrage, or comparison, your nervous system remains activated long after the content is gone. Even when you are no longer thinking about what you saw, your body remembers. Focus becomes shallow. Emotional reactions intensify. Rest becomes harder. This habit rewires your mindset by restoring selectivity. When you consciously choose what enters your mind, you reclaim authority over your internal state. You stop allowing algorithms, headlines, and other people's emotions to decide how you feel. The first step is awareness. For 1 week, observe what you consume without judging it. Notice how often you check your phone. Notice what kind of content holds your attention. Notice how you feel afterward, not immediately, but 30 minutes later. Some content leaves you informed but tense. Some leaves you entertained but empty. Some leaves you calmer, clearer, and more grounded. Your nervous system is honest even when your opinions are not. Once you see the pattern, reduce your consumption by about 30%. Not aggressively, not dramatically. Simply remove the least nourishing inputs first. Unfollow accounts that trigger comparison or outrage. Limit news to a defined window instead of constant updates. Turn off notifications that create artificial urgency. Step away from conversations that revolve around complaint and negativity. You're not obligated to consume everything. You're responsible for protecting your attention. Then replace what you remove with inputs that stabilize rather than stimulate. Silence, long-form reading, calm music, thoughtful conversations, content that deepens understanding instead of provoking reaction. This is not about being positive. It is about being regulated, when your mind is not constantly pulled in multiple directions. Clarity emerges naturally. Focus becomes easier. Emotional responses soften. You begin to respond instead of react over time. This habit creates a noticeable shift. Your thoughts slow down, your attention span lengthens, you feel more present, not because you're trying harder, but because there is less noise competing for your energy. This habit also builds self-trust. Choosing what you consume is an act of self-leadership. It reinforces the belief that your inner state matters and deserves care. Many people fear that if they disconnect, they will miss something important. But what they are really missing is themselves, their own clarity, intuition, and depth. Controlling what you consume does not make you uninformed. It makes you intentional. At the end of each day, ask yourself one question. Did what I consume today support the person I'm trying to become? If the answer is no, adjust tomorrow. No guilt, no judgment. Small corrections compound over time. This habit reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone overwhelmed by the world. You become someone who chooses depth over noise, clarity over chaos. And in a culture designed to scatter your attention, that choice quietly rewires your mindset toward calm, focus, and stability. Habit 5. Speak to yourself with authority. There is a voice you hear more than any other. It speaks before you act. It comments after you fail. It explains why you hesitate. That voice is not passive. It is training you. Most people believe their inner dialogue simply describes reality. In truth, it creates it. The language you use with yourself shapes how your nervous system interprets challenge, uncertainty, and pressure. Over time, that language becomes belief, and belief becomes behavior. If your inner voice sounds doubtful, apologetic, or defeated, your actions will follow that tone. Not because you lack ability, but because the brain obeys the authority it hears most often. Speaking to yourself with authority is not arrogance. It is leadership. Authority does not mean being harsh. It means being clear. It means giving your mind direction instead of leaving it in negotiation. When your inner language is firm and grounded, your nervous system stabilizes. Confusion decreases. Action becomes easier. Most self-talk is accidental. It appears under stress, failure, or comparison. Phrases like, "I'll try maybe," "I'm not sure, I'm just not good at this," feel harmless, but repeated daily. They train hesitation and self-doubt. The brain does not distinguish between commands from the outside and commands from within. When you consistently speak to yourself in uncertain language, your nervous system stays cautious. It waits, it delays, it avoids. This habit rewires your mindset by changing the tone of your internal leadership. The goal is not to lie to yourself or force positivity. It is to replace weakness in language with decisiveness, to speak in a way that signals commitment rather than permission. Notice the difference. I'll try to focus today becomes I will focus today. I hope I can handle this becomes I will handle this. I always mess this up becomes I am learning how to do this. The second version does not guarantee success. It guarantees responsibility. Authority and self-talk reduces internal friction. When your inner voice is clear, your mind stops arguing with itself. You move forward without constant emotional negotiation because the direction has already been set. The practice begins with awareness throughout the day, especially in moments of pressure. Listen to how you speak to yourself. Notice when your language weakens, when it seeks escape, when it turns against you, then adjust the tone. You don't need long affirmations, you need firm instructions. Instead of emotional commentary, give yourself guidance. Pause, breathe, continue. This is uncomfortable. Do it anyway. Focus on the next step. This is how a calm leader speaks, not with drama, but with direction. Importantly, authority does not mean ignoring emotion. You can acknowledge fear, fatigue, or frustration without letting them decide your actions. Authority means emotion is present but not in charge. For example, I feel resistance and I'm still acting. I feel uncertain and I'm choosing the next step. This matters and I'm capable of staying with it. These statements regulate the nervous system. They signal that there is someone steady at the center. Over time, this habit changes how you experience stress. Challenges feel less threatening because your inner voice does not panic. Mistakes feel less personal because your language does not attack your identity. Self-respect grows through tone. People with strong mindsets are not free from self-criticism. They simply do not let it lead. They replace it with a quieter, firmer authority, one that guides instead of undermines. This habit also strengthens follow-through. When you say I will and act accordingly, you collect evidence of reliability. Each fulfilled instruction reinforces trust in yourself, and trust creates confidence. Confidence is not a feeling. It is a memory of kept promises. At the end of the day, reflect briefly. Ask yourself, did I speak to myself like someone I respect? Not perfectly, intentionally. If you noticed moments of weak language, that is progress. Awareness always comes before change. Tomorrow gives you another opportunity to lead yourself more clearly. Over time, your inner voice becomes less reactive and more directive, less emotional and more grounded, less chaotic and more stable. This habit reshapes your identity from someone managed by emotion to someone guided by clarity. And when your internal leadership is calm and firm, your mindset follows with quiet strength. Habit 6. Finish what you start. There is a quiet psychological cost to unfinished things that most people underestimate. It is not loud, it does not announce itself. It accumulates silently in the background of your mind. Every task left half done, every promise postponed, every intention abandoned leaves a small residue. Over time, those residues stack up and form a belief you may never consciously articulate, but deeply feel. My words don't carry weight. This belief is destructive to mindset. Finishing what you start is not about being productive or efficient. It is about restoring trust between you and yourself. When that trust weakens, motivation collapses, focus scatters, discipline feels forced instead of natural. The brain learns through evidence, not intention. You can want to be disciplined. You can think of yourself as capable. But if your daily behavior repeatedly ends in unfinished loops, your nervous system learns a different lesson. It learns that effort does not lead to closure, that commitment is optional, that stopping is safer than completing. This is why so many people feel mentally tired even when they haven't done much. Unfinished tasks keep the mind in a low-level state of tension. They occupy attention, drain energy, and make rest feel shallow. Procrastination is exhausting because the brain never receives resolution. Finishing what you start rewires your mindset by restoring closure. Completion tells your nervous system this ends. That signal creates relief, order, and clarity. It quiets background noise and frees cognitive resources. You don't feel lighter because the task was easy. You feel lighter because it is done. Most people believe they struggle with discipline. In reality, they struggle with accumulation. Too many commitments, too many open loops, too many things started without a clear ending. Perfectionism often disguises itself as high standards, but it is frequently avoidance in refined form. Waiting to finish until something is better or ready delays closure and weakens self-trust. The brain does not reward perfection, it rewards completion. Completion builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. The practice of this habit must be deliberately small and grounded. Each day, choose one task and commit to finishing it completely. Not several, not a category, one clear task. It can be simple. Sending an email, completing a workout, cleaning a small area, finishing a piece of work, or having a necessary conversation. Before you begin, define what done means. This step is critical. Ambiguity keeps tasks open-ended and encourages endless adjustment. Decide the finish line before you start so your brain knows where it is going. Once you begin, stay with the task. Do not multitask. Do not escape into distraction. Discomfort may arise, boredom, doubt, impatience. That discomfort is not a problem. It is part of the training. The goal is not to enjoy the process. The goal is to reach completion. When the task is finished, stop. Resist the urge to add more or improve it further. Allow completion to stand. This moment matters. It is the neurological signal. That closes the loop, then acknowledge it quietly internally. Recognition reinforces learning. The brain needs to register that effort led to resolution. Over time, this habit changes your relationship with effort. Tasks feel less overwhelming because your attention narrows to the next finish, not the entire workload. You stop feeling buried under everything you should do and focus on what you are finishing now. This habit also trains emotional endurance. Finishing tasks despite resistance teaches your nervous system that discomfort does not control behavior. You learn that you can stay present until the end, even when motivation fades. Self-trust grows in these moments. People with strong mindsets are not necessarily more talented or more driven. They are more reliable. They keep small promises consistently. And reliability directed inward is one of the most powerful forms of self-respect. As unfinished loops decrease, mental clarity increases. Thinking sharpens. Decision-making becomes faster. Rest becomes deeper. You're no longer carrying invisible weight. Completion creates space. At the end of each day, ask yourself one simple question. What did I finish today? If the answer is one thing, the day counts. If the answer is none, there is no punishment. Tomorrow becomes the next opportunity to train reliability. Over time, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who starts with energy and fades with resistance. You begin to see yourself as someone who brings things to completion. Someone dependable, someone steady. That identity reshapes your mindset at a foundational level. Confidence follows not from potential but from proof, and proof is built by finishing. Finish what you start, not to impress anyone, not to chase productivity, but to rebuild trust with yourself. One completed action at a time. Habit 7. Practice. Emotional pause. Most people don't lose control because their emotions are too strong. They lose control because there is no space between feeling and reacting. Comment triggers irritation. A delay creates anxiety. A mistake sparks self-criticism. And before awareness arrives, the reaction has already happened. Words are spoken, decisions are made, energy is spent. Later, regret appears, not because the emotion was wrong, but because the response was automatic. This is how reactivity becomes a lifestyle. When emotions lead unchecked, the nervous system stays in survival mode. The brain learns to associate intensity with urgency. Over time, this trains mindset that feels constantly pressured, defensive, and on edge. Practicing emotional pause is how you interrupt that pattern. An emotional pause is a brief moment, sometimes only a few seconds, where you choose not to act immediately on what you feel. It sounds insignificant, but neurologically it is one of the most powerful habits you can build. Without a pause, the emotional brain dominates. With a pause, the thinking brain re-enters. This habit rewires your mindset by teaching your nervous system that emotions are signals, not commands. Most people misunderstand emotional control. They believe it means suppression, pushing feelings down, pretending they don't exist. Suppression does the opposite of control. It stores tension in the body and guarantees a stronger reaction later. Pause is different. Pause allows the emotion to exist without letting it decide behavior. The brain is designed to respond quickly to threats, but most modern triggers are not threats, they are discomforts. Pause gives your system time to recognize the difference. The practice is simple, but it requires repetition. When you notice an emotional surge, anger, anxiety, defensiveness, urgency, do 3 things in this exact order. First, stop, do nothing for 3 seconds. No words, no gestures, no explanation. Stillness is the interruption. It breaks the automatic chain. Second, breathe. Take 1 slow inhale through the nose, then a longer exhale through the mouth. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system and signals safety. Physiology changes before thought does. Third, choose. Ask yourself one question. What response aligns with the person I am becoming? Not what feels satisfying, not what feels justified, what aligns. This entire sequence takes less than 10 seconds, but it can change conversations, decisions, and entire days. At first, you will forget to pause. That is normal. This habit is not about perfection. It is about interruption. Each time you pause even once, you weaken the old reactive pathway. Over time, emotional intensity decreases. Not because life becomes easier, but because your nervous system learns that it does not need to escalate to be safe. This habit also builds dignity. When you pause, you stop saying things you later wish you hadn't. You stop reacting in ways that contradict your values. The mind rests more easily when it trusts your responses. Externally, emotional pause changes how others experience you. People feel less able to rush you, provoke you, or manipulate you. Your presence becomes steadier. Calm begins to surround you. Calm is not weakness. Calm is authority. This habit is especially important during conflict. In tense moments, the urge to defend, explain, or attack feels urgent. Pause gives you space to listen, to choose clarity over escalation, to respond instead of react. You're not avoiding emotion, you are mastering timing. At the end of the day, reflect briefly. Ask yourself one question. Did I pause at least once today when I wanted to react? If the answer is yes, the habit is working. If the answer is no, tomorrow is another training session. There is no failure here, only practice. Over time, this habit reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as emotionally reactive. You begin to see yourself as emotionally capable, someone who can feel deeply without being controlled. This identity shift is profound. Life will always present triggers. Emotions will always arise. That is not the problem. The problem is losing choice in the moment. Pause gives that choice back, and choice is the foundation of a strong, stable mindset. You don't need to eliminate emotion to be powerful. You need space between emotion and action. That space is where self-mastery lives. Habit 8. Move your body to train your mind. Most people try to change their mindset by thinking harder. They sit longer, analyze more, and wait for clarity to arrive. When it doesn't, they assume something is wrong with them. In reality, the problem is not effort. It is immobility. The mind is not separate from the body. It is regulated by it. When the body is stagnant, the nervous system stays stuck. Stress accumulates. Thoughts loop, emotions intensify, motivation fades. This is not weakness, it is biology. Movement is how the nervous system resets. Your body is designed to process energy through motion. When movement is absent, that energy has nowhere to go. It turns inward and becomes anxiety, restlessness, or mental fog. Trying to solve these states with more thinking only makes them louder. Moving your body daily rewires your mindset by restoring balance between thought and action. This habit is not about fitness, appearance, or discipline. It is about regulation. When you move, you tell your nervous system that effort is safe, that exertion does not equal danger, and that momentum is available. You do not need intense workouts. You do not need a gym. You do not need motivation. What you need is consistent, intentional movement that reconnects you with your physical presence. Movement changes brain chemistry, releasing dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins, but its deeper effect is psychological. Movement creates forward motion, and forward motion interrupts mental stagnation. When you move your body, you remind your brain that you are not trapped. The practice is simple. Every day, commit to 10 to 20 minutes of movement, walking, stretching, light strength training, yoga, or slow cardio. The form does not matter. Consistency does. What matters is how you move. Move without distraction. No phone, no scrolling, no external input. Let your body guide your attention. Feel your breath, notice sensation. This pulls awareness out of thought and back into the present moment. This habit is especially important on days when motivation is low. Movement does not require inspiration, it creates it. Many people wait until they feel ready before they act. Movement reverses that order. Act first, feel later. Over time, this habit changes how you experience resistance. Tasks feel more manageable. Focus lasts longer. Emotional reactions soften. The mind becomes less brittle. This happens because movement trains stress tolerance at the nervous system level. Your body learns that increased heart rate is not a threat, that effort can be sustained, that discomfort passes. This translates directly into mental endurance. Movement also strengthens self-trust. Each day you move intentionally, you reinforce the identity of someone who takes responsibility for their internal state, someone who does not wait to be rescued by mood or motivation. That identity matters. You don't need to push yourself to exhaustion. In fact, excessive intensity can backfire by triggering stress responses. The goal is steadiness, not strain. If you miss a day, resume the next. No punishment, no story. Consistency is built through return, not perfection. At the end of the day, reflect briefly. Ask yourself one question. Did I move my body today with intention? If the answer is yes, your nervous system benefited. If the answer is no, tomorrow becomes the reset point. Over time, this habit reshapes your mindset from sluggish to energized, from overwhelmed to regulated, from reactive to grounded. You stop trying to think your way out of resistance. You move through it. The body leads, the mind follows. Many people underestimate how deeply physical movement affects emotional clarity. A short walk can dissolve mental knots that hours of thinking cannot untangle. This is because movement restores rhythm. When the body finds rhythm, the mind organizes itself around it. Thoughts slow, perspective widens, problems feel less absolute. This habit also reconnects you with agency. Movement is a choice you can make regardless of circumstances. You do not need permission, resources, or perfect conditions. You only need willingness. Each time you move despite resistance, you reinforce the belief that you can influence your internal state directly. Over weeks, this builds quiet confidence. You begin to trust that no matter how heavy the day feels, you have a way to reset, not through escape but through engagement. Movement becomes a grounding ritual rather than a task. Eventually, you will notice a shift. Your posture changes, your breathing deepens, your reactions slow. These physical changes signal psychological stability. The mind mirrors the body's steadiness. This is how movement becomes mindset. not through intensity but through consistency, not through force but through presence. When you move daily, clarity stops being something you chase and becomes something you access naturally without forcing effort. Habit 9. Review the day, don't judge it. Most people end their days the same way they live them unconsciously. They move from activity into distraction, from effort into numbness. The day ends, but nothing is processed. Experiences pile up without meaning. Lessons go unnoticed. And tomorrow begins with the same patterns, the same mistakes, the same emotional residue. This is not because people don't care about growth, it's because they confuse reflection with self-judgment. Reviewing the day is not about criticizing yourself, it is about extracting awareness. Judgment activates defense. When the mind feels attacked, it closes. Awareness does the opposite, it opens. The brain learns best in a state of safety, not shame. This is why harsh self-talk rarely leads to change and often leads to avoidance. Reviewing the day calmly rewires your mindset by turning lived experience into usable insight. Without review, days blur together. You repeat behaviors without understanding why. You feel stuck without knowing where the pattern begins. Life feels like something that happens to you instead of something you learn from. With review, each day becomes feedback. Most people avoid reflection because they think it will make them feel worse. In reality, unexamined days are heavier than examined ones. What you don't process stays active in the nervous system. This habit works because it creates closure. The practice is simple and structured. At the end of the day, ideally before sleep, ask yourself 3 questions. No more, no less. What worked today? This question retrains your attention. The mind is naturally biased toward problems. By asking what worked, you restore balance. Even on difficult days, something was effective. Noticing it builds realistic confidence and prevents the mindset from becoming overly negative. What didn't work? This is not about blame, it is about observation. What was ineffective? What drained energy? What created unnecessary stress? Remove emotion from the analysis. Treat it like data. Information, not evidence of failure. What is tomorrow's focus? One clear adjustment, one intention. This gives the mind direction and prevents rumination. Tomorrow does not need a full plan, it needs a starting point. These 3 questions take less than 5 minutes, but their impact compounds over time. Reviewing the day improves emotional regulation. Instead of carrying unresolved experiences into the night, you process them. The nervous system settles. Sleep becomes deeper. Mental clarity improves. This habit also strengthens self-honesty. You stop telling yourself vague stories and start seeing patterns. You notice recurring distractions, emotional triggers, energy cycles. Awareness replaces confusion, and awareness is the foundation of change. Importantly, reviewing without judgment builds resilience. When mistakes are treated as information, they lose their emotional charge. You adapt faster. You learn without shame. You move forward without dragging yesterday behind you. Over time, this habit creates continuity. Days feel connected rather than fragmented. You experience your life as a learning process instead of a series of disconnected events. This also builds self-trust. When you consistently review your day, you signal to yourself that your experience matters, that your growth is intentional, that you are paying attention. People with strong mindsets are not perfect. They are reflective. They notice what works and adjust what doesn't. They don't punish themselves for being human. They learn from it. At the end of the review, stop thinking about the day. This step is critical. Once reviewed, the day is complete. There is nothing left to solve. Rumination after review defeats the purpose. If you skip a day, do not catch up. Review only the present day. The goal is consistency, not accumulation. Over time, this habit reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone stuck in patterns. You begin to see yourself as someone who learns from experience. That identity stabilizes your mindset. Instead of reacting emotionally to each day, you respond intelligently. Instead of judging yourself harshly, you guide yourself forward. Awareness replaces judgment. Learning replaces regret, and when you treat your days as teachers instead of verdicts, growth becomes inevitable and sustainable. Habit 10. Repeat until it feels boring. Most people quit not because something doesn't work, but because it stops feeling exciting. At the beginning of any change, there is energy. New habits feel fresh. Motivation feels natural. Progress feels visible. You feel different quickly, and that difference creates momentum. But then something shifts. The habit becomes familiar, predictable, ordinary. Boredom appears. And this is where most people stop. They interpret boredom as a sign that the habit has stopped working. In reality, boredom is the signal that the habit is starting to work. It means the behavior is no longer novel. It is moving from conscious effort into automatic pattern. Repetition is how the brain decides what matters. The nervous system does not rewire itself through intensity. It rewires itself through consistency. Anything repeated long enough becomes familiar. Anything familiar becomes safe. Anything safe becomes automatic. This is why motivation is unreliable. Motivation depends on emotion. Habits depend on structure. When you rely on how you feel, your behavior fluctuates. When you rely on repetition, your behavior stabilizes. Repeating a habit until it feels boring rewires your mindset by shifting your identity from someone who tries to someone who does. Most people are addicted to beginnings. They love starting, they love planning, they love the emotional high of change. But transformation does not live in beginnings, it lives in continuation. Continuation is quiet, it is repetitive, it is unglamorous, and that is why it works. The practice of this habit is simple, but it requires patience. Choose one habit, one not five, not a system, one behavior that supports the person you are becoming. Commit to repeating it daily for 30 to 90 days. No optimization, no upgrades, no switching when it gets dull. The goal during this period is not improvement, the goal is installation. During this phase, your emotions will fluctuate. Some days will feel easy, some days will feel pointless, some days you will feel resistance with no clear reason. None of that matters, the habit continues anyway. When boredom shows up, do not change the habit, notice the boredom, continue regardless. This trains a critical skill, separating action from emotion. When you act only when you feel motivated, your identity remains unstable. When you act regardless of mood, your identity solidifies. You stop being governed by internal weather. Over time, repetition builds trust. Each completed day reinforces a quiet belief. I do what I say I will do. That belief is more powerful than confidence. Confidence can fluctuate, trust endures. This habit also reduces decision fatigue. Once a habit is installed, it requires less mental energy. You stop negotiating with yourself, you stop debating. The behavior simply happens. Mental space opens up. Repetition also neutralizes fear. Actions that once felt difficult lose their emotional charge through familiarity. What once required courage becomes routine. This is how growth becomes sustainable rather than exhausting. Many people abandon habits right before this shift occurs. They mistake emotional flatness for stagnation, but flatness often means stability is forming. Boredom is not the enemy. Restlessness keeps you searching. Stability allows you to build. At the end of each week, reflect. Briefly, ask yourself one question. Did I repeat the habit even when it felt dull? If the answer is yes, progress is happening beneath the surface. Neural pathways are strengthening. Identity is consolidating over time. The habit stops feeling like something you are forcing yourself to do. It begins to feel like something you are. You no longer need reminders or motivation. The behavior has been absorbed into your baseline. That is identity change. This habit teaches patience. It teaches humility. It teaches respect for slow progress. It protects you from constantly chasing new solutions instead of embodying old ones. You do not need more techniques. You need fewer techniques practiced longer. Repeat until it feels boring. Repeat until resistance fades. Repeat until effort disappears. Because when a habit no longer requires emotion to sustain it, it becomes part of you. And once something is part of you, it no longer needs willpower. Simply exists. That is the moment when change stops feeling like work and starts feeling like who you are. The mindset you live, not the one you think about. By now, one thing should be clear. Your mindset was never something you were missing. It was something you were practicing. Every habit you've explored in this audiobook points to the same truth. The mind does not change through insight alone. It changes through repetition, through what you do consistently, quietly, and often. Without applause, most people spend years trying to think their way into a better life. They search for the right ideas, the right motivation, the right moment. But the brain does not respond to ideas the way it responds to behavior. It responds to evidence. And evidence is built one day at a time. The habits you've heard are not extraordinary. That is why they work. They don't rely on willpower spikes or emotional highs. They rely on structure, on small, repeatable actions that retrain your nervous system to feel safe in focus, calm in effort, and steady under pressure. This is how real change happens, not through intensity, through consistency. You don't need to adopt all 10 habits at once. In fact, trying to do so would recreate the same overload this audiobook is meant to undo. Change is not accelerated by force. It is stabilized by simplicity. Choose one habit, just one. Practice it for the next 72 hours without modification, without optimizing, without questioning whether it's enough. Let repetition do its quiet work. Notice how your body responds. Notice how your thoughts shift. Notice how resistance shows up and fades. Resistance is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something old is being challenged. Growth always feels unfamiliar before it feels natural. Remember this, the goal is not to feel different. The goal is to live differently. When you start your day without your phone, you train presence. When you define an intention, you train direction. When you choose discomfort, you train resilience. When you protect your inputs, you train clarity. When you speak with authority, you train self-leadership. When you finish what you start, you train trust. When you pause emotionally, you train control. When you move your body, you train regulation. When you review without judgment, you train awareness. When you repeat through boredom, you train identity. None of these habits are loud, all of them are transformative. Over time, you will notice a shift that is difficult to explain to others. You will feel less rushed, less reactive, less scattered. Not because life became easier, but because you became steadier. This is what a rewired mindset feels like. Not constant positivity, not endless motivation, but reliability. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to trust your decisions. You begin to trust that you can handle discomfort without escaping it. That trust is the foundation of confidence. And confidence, built on trust, does not collapse under pressure. If you forget everything else, remember this: you do not rise to the level of your goals, you settle at the level of your habits. Your future is being shaped by what you repeat today, not by what you promise yourself tomorrow. There will be days you fall back into old patterns. That does not erase progress. Habits are not fragile, they are reinforced by return. Each time you come back, you strengthen them. Do not wait to feel ready. Do not wait for certainty. Do not wait for motivation. Begin where you are with what you can control, with one habit. Mindset is not a switch you flip, it is a system you live. And the moment you commit to living differently, even in small ways, you are no longer stuck. You're already in motion. Stay patient, stay consistent, stay with the process. Because the strongest mindsets are not built in moments of inspiration, but in days of quiet repetition. And those days lived intentionally change everything.